Hey, it's me, Riker. Today we're going to have a look at Athalia, Harbinger of Justice from the Celestial faction. Now this hero wears leather-based gear, is part of the Ranger class, and her primary role is to do a significant amount of single target damage and lock out one specific enemy target. So let's have a look at her skills. Her ultimate skill, Divine Fury. Athalia attacks her enemies with lightning speed and precision, slashing them 3 times from various positions on the battlefield. Each slash deals 160% damage to all enemies in her path. The third slash has a 100% crit chance. Enemies that have been struck more than once are dealt an additional 50% damage. The level 3 damage is increased to 190%. Her next ability, Judgment. Athalia descends from the heavens onto the battlefield and targets the enemy directly opposite her, inflicting 280% damage to them. So this is her invade ability. Once the initial attack has finished, Athalia will stand and attack the enemy target normally. Enemies will not be able to regenerate any energy when attacked by this skill. Level 2, damage is increased to 290%, and the level 3, targeted enemies cannot regenerate energy from attacks for the next 5 seconds after the initial attack. And the level 4, damage is increased to 310%. Her next ability, Purging Frenzy. Athalia unleashes a multi-stage attack on the enemy nearest to her, with the final blow dealing 150% damage to the target and also leaves them stunned for 2 seconds. So usually she'll use this after her normal attack, Judgment. The level 2, the stun effect lasts for 3 seconds, and the level 3 and 30 engravings increase the amount of damage that this ability does. Her next ability, which is a passive, it is Protection. Athalia uses a divine aura that allows herself to mitigate 8% of all received damage for every ally still alive on the battlefield. Each living ally increases Athalia's damage by 3% and 4% with each respective upgrade. And finally, the 60 engravings for the first 8 seconds of battle. The stat increase received by the skill is 1.5%. So, given that she has 4 allies, this means that she can mitigate a total of 32% incoming damage, and she can also gain an increase of 16% damage permanently throughout the entire duration of battle as long as her allies are still alive. Her signature item, Bloodless. When you unlock it, the defense rating for her is increased by 4% of the value of Athalia's attack rating. So the more investment that you have within this hero, the stronger this hero will become. The level 10 defense rating is increased by 8% of Athalia's attack rating. The 20 upgrade, enemies that attack Athalia will begin to bleed out for 2 seconds. Skill cannot be stacked. Enemies will lose health equal to 85% of Athalia's attack rating per second, and their health recovery will be decreased by 70%. The level 30, enemies injured by Athalia will begin to bleed out for 2 seconds. Skill cannot be stacked. Enemies will lose health equal to 85% of Athalia's attack rating per second, and their health recovery will be decreased by 70%. So, the more times she can use her ultimate skill, where she essentially dashes around the entire battlefield, the more damage you'll deal to the enemies. So, let's have a look at her furniture. So, her 3 out of 3. Athalia strikes at her enemies every 15 seconds, utilizing the same damage and AoE range of her Divine Fury against them. After striking, the damage of Athalia's normal attacks is increased by 15% up until the end of battle. This skill can be stacked 2 times. Athalia strikes at her enemies every 15 seconds, utilizing the same damage and AoE range as her Divine Fury skill. After striking, the damage of Athalia's normal attacks is increased by 20% up until the end of battle. This skill can be stacked 4 times. So, as we can see, there is a common trend of this hero, that the longer she survives and the more enemies that she hits, the more damage and defensive stats that she will gain. So what this means is, if she's paired up in a stall-based team, or enemies that can, or allies that can survive for a very long time, these stats will be permanent and will make Athalia extremely dangerous as her opponent to fight. So this skill can stack 4 times, and this means it can be an 80% increase in damage for Athalia. So let's have a look at how she does in battle. So usually you want to use Athalia against an opponent that distracts your enemies, or you want to control that specific target. So in this case, I want to put it opposite Nimusu over here. The reason why is to essentially cancel out Nimusu's abilities and to essentially slow Nimusu down to such a point where all of his allies can essentially build up and get extremely powerful while constantly distracting this hero over here and claiming victory for your allies. Now, usually Athalia is used in PvP teams or in arena-based formats. Now, as we can see, Nimusu nearly died within the first couple of seconds of battle, and with Athalia's ultimate skill, she nearly one-shotted all the enemies by herself. Now, Athalia is extremely powerful, however, she does require a bit of support, either through healing or other allies that can provide her shields or immunity-based buffs. So as we can see, she can knock back enemies using her abilities, and this essentially allows you to take control of enemies such as Entendre over here, who might be extremely dangerous for your team. Now, as we can see, because she's not invested in this specific game format, she didn't deal as much damage as can be seen. However, when invested in her and when she gains all of her necessary buffs, such as her bleed-based abilities, this allows her to do a significant amount of damage to the enemies. Now, the most common team that she is used in is in the Alna-based team. Now, you would usually have Alna paired up with either Grazul, Lucretia, or Awakened Baden, and then in the backline you would have a hero such as Athalia. Now, Athalia would jump in to the backline over the enemies and essentially would distract the enemies long enough so that your two frontline or backline allies can get strong enough and one-shot all the enemies by themselves. So let's have a look at how she does in battle. So here's one of the battles that I've done. So once again, we have Alna over here in the front row, essentially tanking the damage. And then we have Athalia invading the enemy team. So I've placed my Athalia opposite the enemy Irons, and this allows me to essentially one-shot the enemy Irons within a couple of seconds. So let's play this battle over here. So as we can see, Athalia immediately jumps on the Irons, and she inflicts the bleed effect on top of Irons, and this allows heroes such as Brutus over here to essentially one-shot the enemies, and so that I can gain control over the battle. There we go. Athalia and Brutus managed to take care of that pesky little Irons. And now, basically, I've won the battle because Athalia managed to essentially distract and essentially completely one-shot that specific enemy hero that was extremely troublesome for my allies. So let's speed up this battle over here, and we have claimed victory. Now, she is mainly a single target based hero. However, if she gets multiple ultimates off, she can provide a significant amount of damage for your team. So what is the minimum investment I would recommend into Athalia? Now, because she stacks using her stats, I would highly recommend investing in a signature item, as this unlocks her bleed effect. So even when Athalia is not attacking that specific enemy, the enemy will essentially be damaged by this bleed-like effect. Now, in addition to this, I would also recommend getting her furniture, as this buffs up her damage as well by a total of 80%. This is a pretty significant buff. And in addition to this, I would also get her engravings as well, as this significantly gives her the survivability and damage that she needs to one-shot heroes such as Irons or any hero that you have a trouble dealing with. So as we can see, this is the stat bonus, and this is the damage increased from engravings.